Okay, good evening, folks. Welcome. It's lovely to see you all here. So many folks that I know from different parts of life, and some of you have never met before. Welcome, all of you, to this election time. It feels like 5 years since we were here last time. And actually 5 years between an election, that was feeling like a novelty at one point, wasn't it? But hey, we've had a full time for government. But that's coming to an end. We have a general election on Thursday. And some of you may have voted already, postal vote-wise, but maybe some of you are yet to make up your mind. So this is a great place to be, if you live in South Northamptonshire especially, because you can meet all but one. Just to say, mixed start, the Workers' Party of Great Britain wasn't able to join us tonight, but the rest of the candidates are here, and we'll be tackling a range of questions, covering a range of issues. So there'll be some kind of big structural, usual questions, you know, like economy and development, stuff like that. There'll be some sort of moral issues stuff. A lighter one at the end, as is traditional, and some local issues. And hopefully, you will get a good sense of these fine people who've volunteered to stand up and be candidates, without which we wouldn't have democracy. So I'm very grateful to all of you for doing that. And get a better sense of who you want to vote for, who would best represent your views in Parliament. And that's what we're here for tonight. So I pray the Lord would help us in that endeavour. What I've said first off is that every candidate will get the chance to make a 2-minute opening statement, and then we'll go to the questions. So I'm going to try and make it as random around the order as I can for most of the night, so that it's fair. Can't be perfectly equal, it's never possible, but it'll be as fair as we possibly can be. So, just another point as well, if you're thinking that Ruffia, the Labour candidate's looking a bit different, so actually looks on the leaflets, that's because this is Jim Mullin, who is election agent, who's kindly stepped in to cover for Ruffia, who, surely he's explained in his statement, can't be with us tonight. So, let's start, shall we? Right, Emmy, would you like to go first?
Yeah.
Would that be all right? Lovely,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Can people hear me all right? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, when you're ready, go.
Okay, go. I'm Emmy Williamson, the Green Party. I've been working for over 20 years as a clinical psychologist in the NHS. In that time, I've obviously seen the deterioration of our public services. And it is a time of polycrisis, if you like. So many things are crumbling, and I think we all recognise that. So there are a lot of choices today. I think we've got broken Britain, we've got broken climate, we've got a rapid decline of our species. These are the things that the Green Party are most concerned about, and that's why I'm standing for them tonight. They want deep transformational change, not sticking plasters. So we really need to look at the way the whole system works. We want a system that works for well-being as a priority, well-being of people, of environment and the planet, and everything else forms around that, rather than growth at any cost. We encounter defeatist thinking because we have ambitious, positive ideas, bold ideas, but people often say, well, that will never happen, or, you know, that's impossible. But we have to have that ambition, and that's what the Green Party brings. As a psychologist, I know about the concept of learned helplessness, and that's what's happening with our population, is people feel they can't have real change. But with the Green Party you can. We're realistic optimists, and we have a lot of integrity, honesty and authenticity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emmy. Yeah, that's right, lovely. Thank you, Emmy. Ian, would you like to go next?
Thank you. Is this mic on? Yeah. Firstly, I wish to thank Dame Andrea Leadsom for her work and service to the area over the past number of years. Thank you, Andrea. Sadly, South Northamptonshire, you residents have been let down by the Conservatives both nationally and locally with the current unitary councils. The main parties are offering little difference in policy, and things may just get a little bit better, but with no real benefit for you in your daily lives. And here in South Northants, you need someone who will willingly show leadership and effectively champion those issues that impact your daily lives. I have fought against the developers in this area. Just this week, battling against Persimmon Homes, who are using legal tricks to deny hundreds of thousands of pounds to Spawn School. I've fought for Farthinghoe Bypass by allocating cash and getting work done, sadly tossed aside as the road doesn't happen to be in Northampton. I argued to prevent double charging on green waste and will now fight to keep parking free, as all the other parties want to charge just because they do in Northampton, overlooking the fact, of course, they could make it free there too. Here, I have fought development proposals for extra housing and warehousing, keeping you informed at every step. And as we get closer to Thursday, nothing is suggesting the result will be anything other than a change of government. Your choice then is which opposition MP will best represent this area. Someone who has lived here for over 20 years and knows the issue and is not held back by party allegiance or others beholden to their party, their whip and their funders. As your MP, I will work with any party that can provide financially sustainable solutions that improve the lives of you living here in South Northants. On Thursday, Independence Day, the 4th of July, you have the chance to make that change. Vote for me, for you, not them.
Thank you. Lovely. Okay. Paul Hogan for Reform, would you like to speak?
Thank you, James. I'm Paul Hogan, born in Banbury, brought up in Wheaton. The challenges we face are vast. Both Labour and Tory governments have broken promise after promise. They have destroyed trust in our democracy. Our country is poorer, both financially and culturally. Record high taxes, record high national debt, wasteful government spending, record mass immigration has damaged our country. The small votes threaten our security. Woke ideology has captured our public institutions. The population explosion has pushed Britain to breaking point. There is a housing crisis, a benefit crisis, high crime, record NHS waiting lists. Net zero has sent energy costs soaring. The Tories have broken Britain. Labour will bankrupt Britain. The two-party system has failed. There is an answer. Reform UK. We will stop the votes, freeze immigration, restore law and order, cut taxes to make work pay, cut national NHS waiting lists, unlock Britain's vast energy supplies of oil and gas, beat the cost of living crisis, unleash real economic growth. Once and for all, we will take control of our borders, our money and our laws.
Okay.
A vote for me and Reform UK will mend broken Britain.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Jim, on behalf of Ruffy, would you like to speak?
Thanks. James did say, hopefully this doesn't count in the 2 minutes, an explanation of why she's not here.
Okay.
That there's a really serious family situation. It's not life-threatening. She will be okay tomorrow. But when we talked about the situation, which is deeply personal, I said to her, you really have to focus on that, Rufia. And so we asked if that was okay. And everybody said that was okay. So thanks very much for your understanding. Right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to read Rufia's words from this, although I'll replace I with Rufia. Is that okay? So, here we are. Rufia was born in Northamptonshire and has always lived here with her family. She's proud to represent the Labour Party, which puts the needs of ordinary people first. The reason for that she's dedicated her life and career to public service. She's had 20 years in social care and health. She's had 10 years as a councillor and she's the former mayor of Northampton. Rufia has seen a lot of real life. Challenges for people who are in abusive relationships. She's a tremendous supporter of charities doing that. She's seen 14 years of services being hollowed out, millions on waiting lists, accessing NHS dentistry almost impossible. Young adults can't buy a house, and rural communities have almost no public transport. As an experienced councillor, she's not afraid to ask tough questions, and she does persist, and I've been with her for 5 weeks. She has really persisted all of the time that we've been together. She'll stand up for community groups, individuals, and as an experienced advocate, as an MP, she would relish casework. She is indeed proud to be in the Labour Party, and she says she wants to roll up her sleeves and work for positive change for ordinary people. If I can just add, at the very beginning of this, nobody knew it was going to happen. We were trying to organise ourselves, and we had no time. So on the Monday, following what had happened, she phoned me and said, "Jim, is it okay? Are we doing anything on Monday?" I said, "No, we haven't got anything planned yet." She said, "Because if not, I want to go to Bedford," where she was being involved with helping a woman in her family who had been under an abusive relationship, and she was rescuing them. That's the sort of person that she is.
Thank you very much. Sarah, would you like to go next?
Okay, yes. Shall I just try and move this? Can you hear me with that? Perfect. Okay. It is a critical time for South Northamptonshire, where we must try to find a way to combine preserving the beauty and the history of our towns and villages with looking to the future with quality employment, housing and infrastructure. Your next Member of Parliament really needs to hit the ground running, understanding the issues that are important to you and being effective in making progress on them. Major applications for development in this area are time critical, as are several substantial infrastructure projects. Having practiced commercial property law for over 10 years, I am the only candidate with the legal knowledge and experience to stand up against the developers and be a strong voice for our community, both here and in Westminster. I will support you in opposing totally unsuitable planning applications like at Furtho Pits. I am the candidate you can count on to deliver. Growing up on the border of Northamptonshire in rural Rutland, I know firsthand the unique challenges of living in rural life. In particular, I would work with the councils and others to ensure we have reliable public transport to keep us connected. A key priority for me is access to healthcare. As a type 1 diabetic, I appreciate the fantastic work of our doctors and nurses, and I'm a regular user of the NHS. I want to see us realise the benefits of the Dental Recovery Plan and improve access to GPs and other frontline services. Our farmers will also have my full support and backing. The war with Ukraine has drawn into sharp focus how important they are for our food security. Labour do not understand our rural communities and will harm our way of life, our children's education and our parents' and grandparents' security. Contrast that to the Conservatives, who will lower your taxes, protect your pensions and care for our rural way of life. Only a vote for me, Sarah Ball, will provide security for the future of South Northamptonshire.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go with yourself, Stuart, if that's okay, next, and then I'll come to the other Stuart over there.
I'm basically probably the only one here that doesn't really think he's going to be in Parliament or actually wants to be in Parliament. I'm just trying to chuck a pebble in the pond. The economic system that we've had for the last 40 years is called neoliberalism, and it basically lets the markets rule our route. And since that time, we've seen wealth inequality shrink, so we've basically become, the rich have got richer and the poor have got poorer, which we can see on our streets. Before that, we had a thing called Keynesian economics, which it see us through 2 world wars and then gave us the NHS and all the infrastructure that we've got today. This was he'd realised that we didn't need gold to manufacture money. He knows that he actually understood that government can produce money as long as it's got an asset with that money that it produced. So he could build their schools, and then them assets then would pay themselves back over time. We've gone so far back in neoliberalism, it's like a cancer that has eaten everything. It's took everything away from us that we had in the 70s. You know, we had roads tarmacked every 2 years. There wasn't a thing called a pothole. We suddenly found potholes everywhere. This is a big thing. Even I put it on my flyer. All I'm here to do is say, look, the economic policy, what I think all of these lot follow, is wrong. It's failing. We know it's failing. They know it's failing, but they can't tell us it's failing because they've got hierarchy that controls them. I can sit here and I can say exactly what I want. I've got nobody saying to me, oh, you can't say that. We can't tell people this. We can't tell people that. You know, where I can. You know, there's so much goodness that can come out of Keynesian economics. The only good thing that can come out of probably neoliberalism is quantitative easing, because that shows that we can produce money at our whim. We don't have to pay any interest on it. It can sit in the Bank of England. It can continue to develop. We can buy council houses back. We can have an infrastructure. We can reduce our council bills.
Okay, thank you. It's all right, no worries. Thank you very much. I tend to say a fan of Maynard Keynes in Milton Keynes, but it's just a pun anyway. Right. Stuart, would you like to?
Of course. I'm extremely proud to be the Liberal Democrat candidate for South Northamptonshire. I'm very honoured to be in Deanshanger here tonight. As I only live over the road in Pastenham, it was certainly very easy to get to, and somewhere I know very well. I very much want to be your local champion in Parliament. So I've lived here, I've been an Old Stratford Parish Councillor and have a record of service in the community. I've been involved in speaking up for residents and helping to fight against unwarranted overdevelopment, as has been mentioned, like the Furlough Pit scheme. I even have one of their excellent t-shirts, which I recommend you get. My background is as an academic, and I currently work for a university in recruitment and outreach, talking to students about the value of university as well as the excellent alternative pathways. This passion has taken me now to politics. I look to try and make tangible results and improvements in people's lives. I believe the Liberal Democrat Fair Deal will be truly transformative, both nationally and locally. It is not just a slogan for change or a package of gimmicky promises, but a targeted list of priorities to help address some of the most growing concerns in society. As Ed Davey has shown in his emotional election broadcast, the looming crisis of social care is a top priority. We will raise the carer's allowance and provide free personal care, which in the long run will save billions as people no longer will need to rely so much on hospitals. In the NHS, we'll recruit 8,000 new GPs and guarantee access to a GP within 7 days or 24 hours in an emergency. In education, we will fund much needed repairs in schools and provide a mental health professional in every school. We will deal with the sewage crisis by giving new blue flag status to rivers and a new regulator to crack down on rogue water companies. I've been privileged to talk to so many of you about our plans over the last 6 weeks. Many are hearing the Tory not Tory message and are voting for the Liberal Democrats, helping to create a political earthquake, I hope, on July the 4th.
Thank you very much. You finished 2 seconds before you were allotted time. That's almost worrying in a politician, really. I think didn't really under time. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think everyone's had a go, and I've not missed anybody out, have I? Good. Okay, so let's go to our first question for the evening. Let's go with question number 2. Those of you remember who've got question number 2. Yeah? Oh, hello, Karen. Yes. Who I've never met before. Would you like to stand up and share your... I've got a copy of it here as well. But, no. Switch at the bottom. Right on the bottom. That's it. There you go. Oh. Little red light should come on. Boom. Boom.
Okay, I think it's on now. Okay. So, good evening. What do you think is the true state of our public services? And given that, how can we improve them, given high and increasing national debt and a slow growth economy? Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Yes, so what do you think is the true state of our public services, and how can we go about improving them with the economic situation as it is and high and increasing national debt? That's tied in a few sort of different questions that have come as I've asked for questions. So, different order this time. Jim, would you like to kick us off on this one?
I can do. How long have we got?
1 minute 30 for this.
Okay, 1 minute 30, it'll be quick. So, thanks for the question. The first thing to say is that Labour has made a big play of saying that we will stick to the fiscal rules. So what you described at the end as increasing national debt should be falling at the end of 5 years, unlike what it is at the moment, where it's falling but will rise. In terms of what's wrong, we don't really need to go into a list, do we? Everything's decaying, everything's falling apart, potholes are the least of the problems, but everything is in trouble. So what's Labour saying they're going to do? The list of things includes 6,500 new teachers, specialist teachers, so your PE teacher isn't teaching maths. We've talked about 40,000 appointments in the NHS a week, which will lead to the eradication of waiting lists by about the end of the Parliament. The dental, I thought it was amazing to mention the dental recovery plan. Anybody recovered? Because I don't think that's really been dealt with at all. But there are dentists, and the question is getting them on board with being working for the NHS. That's a plan of Labour. In terms of other areas, there's plans to help councils recover from year after year after year of decline. All of them are fully costed, and I know people will say, oh, there's some secret plan. Maybe we'll come back, will we be coming back to that? There isn't any plan, and there is no need for...
Jim, I'll stop you there, but thank you. Okay, thank you. Paul, would you like to go next?
You hear me?
Yeah.
We need to reduce national debt, first of all. Then we will have money to put into our public services. Our hospitals do not need more money, they need reform. They need more frontline staff, less at the top. We don't need diversity managers, leaflets printed in 32 languages. We speak English here. If you want to attend these things, speak English. Take your own translator. There is a lot of changes need to happen in this country to bring back good public services. That's about what I reckon we'll do.
Thank you very much. You don't have to use your full time, that's fine. Thank you. Ian, your thoughts?
Well, to answer the question head on, what's the state of the public services in decline and continuing to decline? And the reasons for that are many and varied. But the simple one, from where I'm sitting, if you wish to get improved public services, the first thing you have to have is an improved economy, and an economy that's growing. We spend an awful lot of time talking about how we wish to cut the cake and not how we wish to grow the cake. And I think that's the first bit. You need to have an economy that's growing. And that to me then means as little regulation as is necessary. I'm not saying none whatsoever, but we need to be looking along those sort of lines about growing our economy, and then that in return will fund those better public services. And one of the biggest areas, certainly on public services, we must find a way to fund care. Because when we talk about lack of rural buses, when we talk about potholes as we have, they're just the symptoms. The problem is that particularly the local councils who have a care responsibility. Nationally, it's 68p in every pound is being spent on care. Locally, for West Northampton, it's a little better than that. It's 65p in every pound that's spent on care. That means that potholes, emptying your green waste, emptying your bins, all the other services, leisure, whatever you want your council to do, is coming out of the 35p. And that must change.
Thank you very much. Sarah, would you like to go next?
Of course. Yes, so very much as we said, the particular last few years, the particular last 5 years have been incredibly challenging, and we have to see everything in that backdrop because of the impact of COVID, the energy crisis, and therefore sort of the cost of living. So we have to have that backdrop. But I do think that, sort of as Ian has mentioned, actually the key to our helping with our public services is to have a growing economy. And we have seen now inflation has come down from 11 to 2%, which is incredibly important because it is inflation that steals the money away from everyone every day, and also in terms of how we can spend it on our public services. So that is an increased improvement, which is brilliant. But when it comes to things like the NHS, it is very important that we are very efficiently using our money, because we are living longer and medical treatments are getting more expensive. So we will always need more money going in, but it is how we use it and how we deploy it. We need to drive up productivity within the NHS. And as you said, we do need to deal with social care. That is incredibly important. And part of that is looking at preventative medicines as well, to make sure that people aren't getting ill or having falls required to be in hospital. So there is a lot that we are doing, and I think we've got to be optimistic about the future and what we can achieve, because progress is being made.
Thank you very much. Lovely. Stuart, Tolly, would you like to go next?
So as already been mentioned, this is really a case of tax versus spend and growth, and economic growth. And those are the two things you need to balance. Obviously, we have said in our manifesto that we're not going to raise any of the taxes on working people, NI, income tax, or VAT, but we have got some targeted tax rises that we do think should be made to cover some of our big spending commitments, particularly on things like social care and our plans for the NHS. This includes things like changing capital gains, making it so that people who earn their money through shares and dividends are not paying less than someone who pays through PAYE. I mean, that makes no sense. But really, the case is growth. And there's a big elephant in the room in terms of growth, which is our relationship with Europe. That is a big, big fiscal drag on the economy. And it really is like putting economic sanctions on ourselves. By reducing those, and eventually getting back into some of the economic structures, we might be able to help grow the economy more quickly without having to do massive amounts of stimulus and spending. But there are also other things we can do locally as well, local investment. So we are proposing things like a commercial landlord levy, so we take the burden off the business rates of the people of small businesses on the high street and take it to the landlord instead. Just so it's a way of reinvigorating the high streets, which have been a huge problem, the degeneration of our high streets in local areas. So it's things like that, so we can be targeted as well locally in terms of what we can do to improve local growth as well as national.
Thank you very much. Comes to the second again as well. To check your wiring.
Might be academia. I'm sort of used to do lectures at a certain.
No cyborgs allowed to stand with us. Emmy, would you like to go next?
Yeah, that's great. First part of the question, the state of public services. I think I'll just really bring my own experience in here about seeing the huge demoralisation and the effect of austerity, how it made everything so fragile that is why everything started to collapse with COVID. The Conservatives tend to blame external factors, but they had already started to trash our public services, and that's the truth of it. Everybody is leaving the NHS, and this is a big problem, and the care services. So I've seen that, they've been blamed, and they've had pay cut after pay cut every year since the Conservatives came into power. How to improve? I mean, that's a massive question. The Greens have the biggest investment programme of all the parties. We would fund it with taxing the very, very wealthy, the super wealthy and the billionaires, and have carbon taxes on the big polluters and windfall taxes and stopping subsidies for the oil companies. This creates a huge amount of money for investment in our public services. I'm really glad that Stuart, the other Stuart, is here to talk about the economics, because we're actually very much pro a very different economic model. We think that this idea of growth as being the only way has been a myth, that wealth accumulates with a few, and the many suffer. We need a different model. The Greens have got it.
Thank you very much. Speaking of Stuart, would you like your minute and a half?
It's my time now. I'd nationalise the lot, to be honest. The country needs to work as a business. It needs to make a profit. We're not making a profit. We're letting somebody else take the profit, and we're not surviving. We haven't got enough money to pay for our elderly, pay for our young, pay for anything. Because we're letting the markets rule, you know, and look at Liz Truss, she basically was an avid neoliberalist, and the market knew her tax breaks would not work. They couldn't work. So what they did, they turned on her, the dog turned on her. You know, and we lost 30 billion, was it, something like that? I'm sure it was about 30 billion, wasn't it? Yeah. We lost 30 billion pounds because the market that we follow, that helps us, and we have all this trickle-down money, because I don't feel it falling on me, it's not true. You know, the lobbyists in Parliament are not poor people. They're not people that need something. They're people who have already got something. And they're lobbying these in House of Parliament every day. They're saying, we need this help. You know, look at Tata Steel. We're going to give them 500 million to build a factory, and he's a multi-billionaire or even trillionaire, and we're giving him money to give 1,000 jobs. That factory should be ours. That factory should be our steel factory. We should be pumping steel out and making a profit for it to help us. And until we actually turn our economics around and we wake up to what's going on, we are going to be sort of down this path and we're going to crash.
Thank you.
Am I finished now?
Sorry, you can wrap up very quickly if you want to, but...
No, I'm all right now.
You're done. All right, thank you very, very much. Thank you all. Because of time constraints, at any point, we can't take to every candidate, but has anybody got a point they'd like to make or response to any of that they'd like to make? Please do. I'm not sure if the microphone's working. You might just have to boom it out. Yes.
Woke, it's how do I explain it? We seem to go into pronouns, him, his, and all these sort of things. We've lost our great British language to a new language. This woke language. It's what's it mean though?
It's just a negative. Really?
It is a negative way of speaking.
It's negative about people like me.
Yes, thanks. Yes, absolutely true. Yeah.
Okay, right, let's go on. Next one. Good question. The third point. People use words as not everyone.
That's a bit woke. That's a bit.
It used to be a positive because it meant being awake to issues.
Yeah.
And it's been used now in the pejorative.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yes.
Like other things, it can be seen either way, I guess. Can I ask you?
A couple of the candidates have said that they're going to be able to cure things by employing thousands of new teachers and thousands of different people in the NHS, and I'd be very interested to know where these people are going to come from.
Yeah.
Because as a council, we regularly have adverts out for staff.
Yeah.
We don't pay their wages, but we can't find staff. So I'm very interested to see where those people are going to come from.
We also had a question. Someone else emailed to ask that, and they said, no, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We're saying that net teacher numbers were pretty much flatlining. So if you want extra, where we're going to get them from? It's a very good point. I don't know if you've got time for us all to try and go answering that one, but it's easier said than done. I think, perhaps.
Yeah.
You know. Would
So
be,
I only answer on teachers. But
Yeah, well, you go for teachers and I'll go for...
okay.
okay, very quickly if you can.
Yeah. The big problem certainly in teaching is actually there are all these sorts of schemes to get new teachers in, loads of them, and actually they're quite successful. The problem really is retention. That's the problem in teaching at the moment. There is a mass exodus going on with teachers, and there are structural problems with the paperwork, how much they're being asked to do, the demands, and that's what we need to do. We need to look at that issue. Talk to teachers, find out what we can do to reduce the burdens, and then keep the retention up.
Thank you, Stuart.
Can I have a go? So, prison officers, I go into Woodhill as a minister. I'm a retired Baptist minister. And they have 50% of the staff that they need, 50%. Therefore, everybody is locked up 23 hours of the day. It's absolutely terrible. And one of the things, just like Stuart says, primarily it's retention, because the conditions that they are working under are abysmal.
Okay.
And so they're voting with the
Yes, this was always, because you all want to say push it, that's fine. Let me give Sarah's person, then I'll come to you. Sarah's person, then
Very
Emmy.
quick one from me. I want to, before we get on to this topic possibly later, but just to say that people who migrate to this country are very valuable in filling so many of the vacancies that we have in our public services, and they do a great job, and I just want to say.
Okay, thank you.
Just very quickly, I do take it as important that we do have more teachers. They're absolutely essential for education going forward. The only thing is Labour says they want 6,500 teachers, but that's 0.2% of like a teacher across the country. So that is a target, but that's not a realistic number. We've got to move away from numbers like that.
Okay, well, whoever wins is going to have their work cut out, I think it's safe to say.
You still haven't answered the core question, which is where are you going to get them and how are you going to pay for them? And why are people leaving? You talk about the conditions. Well, get off their backs. Remove the paperwork, remove the thing. Allow teachers to just teach.
Yeah.
You don't need to be doing a risk assessment because they want to go for
Okay.
or something similar like that.
Well,
Allow
you do
the
an
people
answer.
who've got the professions just to do follow their passion instead of shackling them with all these other
Well,
layers of bureaucracy.
maybe that relates. Okay, let's go for a bit of a change. Let's go for question number 6, which relates to money but also climate issues. Number 6, thank you. Thank you. So, many scientists saying we're heading for a climate catastrophe. Is the rush to net zero essential to saving the only planet we've got, or are we just risk making ourselves poorer for little global benefit?
I'll answer this.
Go on then, mate, and then I'll go.
Straight in.
We live in a planet
Bill,
which has been colder and hotter. The temperature is going up because the sun is getting hotter.
Is it?
While China and India keep pouring out smoke and building more coal-fired power stations, our 1% of carbon is not worth talking about. We need to scrap net zero in this country. We do not need to lead on this in any shape or form until the other countries get their act together. That's including America, Russia, our little bit. We scrap net zero, we save 20 billion, 10 billion in subsidies every year. This is where we get our money to start putting our services right. That's my honest opinion.
That's what we asked for. Thank you very much. Stuart, you've been going quite late, so I'll let you have an early answer.
Well, I think hearing answers like that realises why it is so important and why we do need to take the climate emergency seriously. Now, I was very pleased to hear that actually Greenpeace recently, I think, ranked all of the manifestos and said the Liberal Democrats was second only to the Greens, I will say, in terms of how green it is. And obviously, you have to take people with you. You can't just do everything top down. This is a big. This is part of the problem. It shouldn't be a. It shouldn't be a zero-sum game. And certainly for us, there are important things we can do. Well, actually save money. Things like giving free insulation and heat pumps to those on the lowest incomes, for instance. That will actually, in the long term, actually save people money. But we do have some ambitious targets. We want to reach net zero by 2045, and we've also pledged to be 90% renewable by 2030 in terms of power. So it is very, very important, but as I say, we do want to take people with us, and a big part of that is we have proposed to do local and national citizens' assemblies to deal with climate change. So you'll be able to have a national one, which will be made up of members of the community, and local ones as well, to have targeted and effective climate change measures that everyone can do, that everyone can sort of get involved with, and then decide about how to mitigate the worst examples from climate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Stuart,
Okay. We need a massive infrastructure change. I travel to London every day. It used to take me about an hour and 15 minutes to get to where I'm working. It now takes me 2.5 hours. So that's an extra hour of my vehicle pumping out fumes. The transport system that we've got today is road-based. It's wrong. I'm going past lorries that are carrying pallets of 4x4 pallets around the country. You've got these Arctics on the road that we don't need them on the road. If we use the old railway system that we shut down and revamp it into a transport system that can just take pallets around, that would increase our GDP, because 20% of our GDP for travel for expensive is transport. So we could uproot these old networks up, and we could, because it'd be sort of virtually green land, we won't have problems with the planning. We can follow some of the old tracks that are still there. We can get this infrastructure, so it would link all our factories together. It would reduce our footprint, and we could own it as a country, and we could get royalties back from it. I've got somebody there shaking his head like he doesn't really understand. Is anything anybody want to ask around that?
No, just you carry on, Stuart.
It's basically, if you look at the old railway network that we destroyed, a lot of it is still there. And if we rebuilt it, we could have factories that could build new track lines and everything without putting us roadworks, holding us back. You know, we could do all this ready to switch over to the new system. And I can't see why we're not thinking out the way on transport and why we've got to try and use what we've got already. Sorry.
There's no problem. Emmy, in the green jacket.
Great.
The green jacket's over there. Hello.
Just so you remember which party I'm from. Yeah, I mean, obviously I could talk for hours on this as to how we would want to do this. Yes, it is a rush. It really is. We haven't had catastrophes here yet, but they are coming our way, and they're happening globally, and we need to take some responsibility for that. But I think the tack I'll take is about this idea that we lose money by spending on net zero. No, we don't. It's where the smart money is. You know, the oil is stranded assets. If you're a business person, you're going to be put it on the green technology, right? This is what we need to be doing. It's the right way for the future. People are stuck in the past if they want to stay with oil. So really, I think this whole idea that it's spending and making us poorer, we've become poor partly because we're missing the boat. Europe and the States are investing in wonderful green enterprises and technology. Their energy bills are coming down because it's rubbish that this actually adds to the energy bills. That's actually oil prices that do that. So it really is a no-brainer that it saves money long term, it invests in our country and creates great jobs, meaningful jobs.
Thank you very much. Okay. So, Ian, would you like to?
Well, the reason the energy prices in the States are so low is because of fracking gas and self-sufficiency. It's got very little to do with other things, and they're not as impacted by the war in Ukraine because of global markets as we are. But I will happily accept the hypothesis that human activity is contributing to the climate. What I then don't buy is this sort of catastrophization of everything and saying, oh, stop the world from spinning because, you know, we have to do everything by a deadline. No one said in 1924, to pick a date at random, that every horse and cart has to be off the road because Henry Ford has invented a new car. You know, this is where I divert from this global emergency type talk. It's an engineering challenge that we have to do. But I still don't know where the technologies are in order to solve the problem. So there's no point in talking about let's go and decarbonise the grid. Where's it going to cost and how are we going to do it? Because some of the ideas, they're not commercially viable. Where are we going to do with transport and things like that? They're just, you know, we don't have a fleet of electric trucks that are going to work. And even if we did, where are we going to get the power from them? And, you know, are they going to have any juice by the time they've left the yard? These are normal questions that I haven't seen. And I just ask, how are you going to do it? How are you going to pay for it? And where's that money going to come from? What's it going to cost? Because this is thousands of billions of pounds that it's going to cost to do it properly.
Thank you. One of the things that perhaps no one's covered is the rate of change, the pace at which we get to that, and maybe something we'll get back to in a minute. Or maybe Jim would like to cover that on Ruffy's behalf and let you go next.
Sure. So, first of all, it is the possibility of catastrophe is in our face. And the timing is not of our giving, it is perfectly calculatable by models. And so we have a pretty good idea of when it has to be. And there might be a bit of debate, is it 30 or 35? Even 50 is way out there, but it's very soon, relatively speaking. In terms of what Labour's got to say. Of course, we all know that we started off with 28 billion, and boy, I wish we had it. But it went. Do you know what happened to it? Liz Truss. So there had to be a change of plan. Shaking heads, it's absolutely factual. So we've got, what do we do? The plan is to use GB Energy, which will be an investment tool for leveraging extra money. 3 to 1 is the cautious way of looking at it. And so we will have a lot of money to address these things. Transition is crucial. I come from the northeast of Scotland, in which we've got a lot of oil workers who have got skills. There has to be a transition. So there has to be some handover. But we have to start now. We can't wait for some day when somebody says, oh, it's just around the corner. Smart money. I love the idea of smart money. And that is where it's at. In America, there might be some debate about precedent, but state by state, they're bringing these things in.
Thank you.
Okay, something useful to say, but...
So if it's very quick, go on.
Right, yeah. No, it's just in terms of the technology, I happen to know, because I've worked on it in the past. Carbon capture, again, happens to be in the northeast of Scotland, but that is available. Conservative government didn't make it a priority because they don't vote Tory.
Well, I used to sell heat pumps, just so you could talk about those in the pub afterwards. How are we? Stop. Sarah, I'm going to let you come in on that one.
Perfect. Well, no, I agree that I think climate change is an absolute priority, and I'm actually really proud of the actions that the Conservative Party has taken to date, because we were the first major economy in the world to pass net zero emissions laws, so that we are net zero by 2050. And I just agree with Ian, I think we should be being the world leaders, and there is a lot that we can do which will help dictate the market, and that will have its impact. I appreciate you do have China and India, but that doesn't mean that we do not take action. I do think we have to be realistic with this pace of change as well. We need to hit that, but we don't, as you were saying, Sarah, in your question, need to penalise individuals to get there. I think it's important, for example, like putting back the ban on new diesel and petrol cars to 2035. We've got to do so in a balanced way. It is about bringing everyone along with us. So that is why we've also done the smaller nudges, where we've had like the tax on plastic bags and the changing of straws. These are little actions, but obviously they have to sit alongside the bigger actions too. But I think we can definitely achieve this, and I think, you know, we will do it, and we have to, because we cannot ignore it. It is too vital for the future.
Thank you very much. Okay, so everyone's had their chance to speak. Would anybody like to ask a question? The chap there with his arm up very firmly. Would you like to ask a question, sir?
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on your policies for the country and the world and the economy. That's fantastic. But I come here tonight to hear from each one of you what you think is important to us in this constituency in South Northamptonshire. So, before I waste small people's time, can each one of you give me either a single word or a sentence of what is your priority for my vote for this area? Be it healthcare, be it education, be it whatever, but I've not heard what you want our constituency to prioritise. Can you answer me what is
Good. I mean, we've got time for one word. If it would be helpful to have a one-word answer, but...
Basically, get rid of food banks, get rid of poverty.
Okay, eliminate poverty. Yeah, Emmy?
Yeah, I think we've got councillors in the north of Northants, and they've successfully battled against warehouse developments. We are the real campaigners on that,
Okay.
and we're also anti the
Quick,
model
sorry.
that's making them spread all over Northants.
The politicians can never count when you say just a couple of words on it. And Vickers are the same, to be honest, so I can't grumble. Mick, sorry, Mick, I keep calling you Mick because I've got that in front of me like that. Paul.
Put British people first, and then sort out everything else after.
Thank you very much. Stuart.
Localism, putting power back in your hands in as much tangible power in the local community as possible, so your decisions are made at a local level as possible.
Thank you. Sarah.
For me, sensible development so that we not only protect the environment and our rural way of life, but also provide jobs and opportunities for the future.
Ian.
Very simple, as I've been saying in all my literature, I will work for you, not them.
Okay, Tim.
One thing would be the NHS, whether it's dentistry, medical, GPs, sort that.
Stuart.
I've been it once.
No. Was there a very short, pithy thing you could say that your big passion for the constituency?
Yeah, I think we just
Thank you very much.
We got to really think.
He's gone there.
Wasn't impressed by any of that.
I'm all right.
No, you're okay. Well, do you know what? Thank you for doing that, because when you put on the spot, that's not easy. But obviously, you've all thought about these things a lot, so, you know, and it's hard to pick one thing, isn't it, sometimes? Thank you for coming. Right. Any other hands on there? Yeah, no worries. Yeah?
Because the 1% of carbon that we produce is only making the trees and grass a bit greener. It's not massive. We just need to make sure that we, you know, design better chimneys and things like that. But not a big deal, like the billions of money we're throwing into this.
Can I just say 1% is a manipulation of statistics. That's actually based on population, but we as a very developed country actually use a massive amount per capita compared to other countries.
I know
so
there
this 1% is misleading.
Yes. I know there are, I call statistics, it depends how you count them. And one should always be wary in that sense. Any other comments from any other, don't know, open up too much, because any other comments on that question? Yeah? Okay.
I don't think Kodak, I'm pretty sure Kodak were offered the digital camera and said, this will never take on, and they were only interested in protecting their wet film and that side of their business, and it all disappeared. I'm not saying, no, what I'm not saying is protect everything that we've got. What I'm saying is you cannot just click your fingers and say, we're going to make every car electric, because even if you did, you wouldn't have enough power in the grid at the moment.
I'll
We're in a
answer
kettle.
the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to make it strong. I don't want the deadlines.
I get that. I do want to go to Sue at the back. I know you all want to say something. I know you do. I know you do. Can I ask Sue first and then let you answer that perhaps with Sue's question? Sue at the back, we've never met before. That lady at the back called Sue. Hello.
Can't hear.
Okay, so my understanding of your question, Sue, is that because of various limitations in life, like disabilities and so forth, moving to electric cars, charging points, the cost of power, all that sort of thing, it's easier said than done. Is that your point? Okay. 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 So I think it's a fair point, and I don't know a bit about the Google bit, I'll be honest, but in terms of when we roll these things out, is there a danger that we can be quite, dare I say, middle class in how we go about it, assuming that everyone's got a drive they can plug into, and, you know, it can be more like a Waitrose magazine. It's a gentrification of an issue, perhaps. Is there a danger in that, maybe? Anyone, can you comment on?
Well, I was going to say, this is why the solution needs to be local and done with the local councils, because it's these sorts of issues that are going to affect people directly on the ground. You need to make sure.
Yeah, I'll let Emmy and Sarah come, because they've been asking me
Well, yeah, there's two there. I'd love to talk to both of them, but regarding the big opportunities, I really welcome that positive optimism that the Green Party share. because, for instance, there's a massive opportunity in energy storage. This is the area that needs to develop, and storage can get smaller and not using the rare materials, etc., that it currently does. So yeah, just on that. And then, yes, the Greens would really invest in much more clever and public transport options, as well as EV infrastructure, clearly.
Okay, very quickly, Sarah, and then very quickly, Stuart. Go on.
Just to answer your questions there, hydrogen is an area I'm really excited about because it's a very good clean energy source, and we're seeing it rolled out for use in trains and rail and freight, and it's definitely the way we've got Northern Ireland creating new buses now that can be used powered on hydrogen. Great new area, and absolutely right to your question at the back, Liv. It should be, we need to make sure the transition so that no one is penalised. Range anxiety is a real thing when it comes to electric, so we have to have a sensible plan going forward.
Okay, Stuart, and then I will just bring you in.
Just very quickly, I agree with all of this, and we need to have a very mixed approach to how we deal with energy and coming up with great new technologies. I do think that nuclear also needs to be included in that as well, particularly small modular reactors. I know the Green Party's against, but I do think you need a mix.
Can I have a nuclear car? Brilliant idea. You heard it.
Well, I was talking about in general, because we're talking about big ideas.
Jim, very quickly, sorry.
In terms of, we need two things to happen, don't we? We need an industrial strategy. We've been absent of that for so long. And we need to connect that with actually priming the pump. And that's why GB Energy and also the Wealth Fund that Labour Party is suggesting will leverage private money and get the job done. In terms of the technology, by the way, in terms of the technology, there are so many things that are just around the corner, quite literally. I used to work for a multinational that had some of the ideas that are coming up now 20 years ago. The technology is there, but it's not had the prompting of the market. GB Energy, Wealth Fund, will make those things possible.
Okay, you heard it first. We shall see. We shall see. Thank you, Jim. I'm going to move on to the next question now, if I can. Real change attack. And the time is running on. We're nearly 9 o'clock already. Very different. This is more of a sort of moral issue, a kind of free speech and free conscience and other more delicate issues. So as ever, please, we'll all try and be as sensitive as we can. Question number 4, please, which I think is you, Philip. Yeah. Who I've never met before.
Will you have the microphone, because I'm slightly hard of hearing?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was a microphone, but...
Thank you. So just to reread that question, a conversion therapy ban, as it's often called, is proposed by many parties to prevent homophobic and transphobic abuse. Does this also risk criminalising free speech, other values and consensual faith practices like prayer and religious teaching? So, Ian, would you like to start this one?
I think, in short, yes. It's the one thing that I fear with an incoming Labour government, is that they will go down those roads on free speech, on what we can say. And you can see it in places like Scotland, where the SNP introduced their hate speech laws, in which they were going to criminalise even, and have, in fact, criminalised even discussion around dinner party, because somebody could snoop on Grandad because he said something after he had a little bit too much sherry in him. So these things do worry me, that that prayer or free speech or a blasphemy, even a blasphemy law by stealth as well, which I would be against. I'd be quite at the liberal end of the free speech thing. Nobody has a right not to be offended. People can say whatever they wish as long as they're not going to incite breaking the law, as far as I'm concerned, and I will defend your right to say it as long as you allow me to say what I want. But I do not like this, and it really worries me that we will be going down this path of wanting to have much more of that type of anti-free speech, anti-liberal laws introduced by stealth. And it's not really being talked about in some sort of arms race with other countries in order to see who can be the most progressive and who can be the most right on. But whilst doing that, they're actually taking out all of the people that you care about.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to, I'll go to Jim on that one, I think, next, on behalf of Rufia.
So Rufia and I had a chat about various topics that might come up under this. I have to say this was not the detail that we covered, but I'll try and judge her view. I'm a Baptist minister, and I'm from the evangelical side of that, and I have certain views about these things which might not be the widest held. But there's no sense that anybody is trying to bring in a law that stops people praying. Not a jot of it. And the idea, this sort of wokeism, anti-wokeism type of thing, is ridiculous. What we'll have is that people should be protected for who they are, irrespective of their sex, their gender, whether they are rich or poor, whatever religion that they come from. And everybody is behind that. It is simply a misnomer. It is not happening. Theresa May was the one that first brought these things to Parliament, and Theresa May doesn't strike me as being anti any of these groups that are trying to do it. So I don't think we need to worry about it.
Thank you. One of the reasons, there are people within Labour that have said that is kind of the thing they want. There are people who are lobbying for that. Is the Labour position then that they are going to try and get that balance right and not be... You're saying, that's what you seem to be saying.
So it's really, all of these things, anything that comes up like this is going to be a free vote. There's not going to be any whips administered. So it would be straightforward, and I can imagine that people will reflect what the national view is, because there's no reason for them to do anything else.
I wonder what the national view would be on that one, interestingly. Thank you, Jim. Sarah.
Okay, thank you very much. Look, I think free speech is obviously very important, but also so is the rule of law and making sure that it's done in a fair fashion, but also so is the right to religion. And I think the problem where we've got as a society now is that we need to have more care and compassion. In politics, we have to learn to disagree agreeably. We will all come from different perspectives, but we have to stop seeing it so black and white because it is so very divisive on things that are so very sensitive. So I think as a nation, I really do think we need to care and a bit more compassion in our politics. We all want better things for everyone, so I think that's where I stand on this.
Okay, so you would try and take a compassionate balance for the best interests of, or have a good discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Try and take the heat out.
Yes, explore, obviously discuss it, absolutely. I think that's very important, but we don't need to be vilified and we don't need to have the aggression that is brought forward against any group. I think we need to have a balance.
There's certainly plenty of aggression around in politics sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I don't need to tell you guys that, probably. Emmy?
Yeah, I'll go quite specific, I think. Firstly, I completely agree. The debate has become very toxic, and it's made me nervous about talking about this. I know, being the age I am and being a gay woman, I know that when I was a young person, and people didn't want me to be gay, and there were conversion therapies going on then with me and my friends. So I really know what this question means and feels like. They were therapies. They were seen as that you were deeply disordered and that you just needed to be fixed. So I welcome that everyone on the panel is saying, that we, and I really like how Jim put it, it's about saying you value who they are, you respect who they are, and that's the key thing. I do think it gets confusing with some religious beliefs about sexuality and gender. I think that's a big conversation to be had, but I think the general themes here are the right ones around compassion and just being able to keep our minds open as we go into a future. Obviously, things have changed so much since I was a young person, and I really welcome that. And it's lovely to have seen that change. We've got to remember that kind of change is still going on now. We've got to also look out for women's rights, which have been a worry
Thank
for
you,
some
Amy.
people.
So we're running out of time.
Yeah,
but thank you.
so all of it, really.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Stuart, Tom, I come to you next. I mean, one of the distinctions that's being drawn is between something that's coercive and pressuring versus consensual adults who have a view, who want support in that. I mean, how do you see where that kind of line, difficult as it is, should be drawn?
So I am a natural liberal, so I do very much believe in free speech. I'm, for instance, not a big fan of things like platforming. I remember when Nick Griffin was going to be on Question Time, I was very much in favour he should be on there, because it was only that showed up how ridiculous his views were, and you didn't hear from him after that. And otherwise they become victims and they go to their own echo chambers. But I'm also not religious at all, but I do support the conversion therapy ban. I can't really add any more to what Emmy's already said on that, because I think she makes it from a very personal point of view, and she makes a really good point. But I will say is I believe that once this probably inevitably gets passed, I think we'll be looking back and wondering why we were worrying at all in the first place. I don't think it's going to be a big issue in years to come.
So churches come from a personal point of view, because churches shouldn't worry about praying with people.
No,
That's not where you want to go with it. Okay, thank you, because it is a concern that I get raised to me, and I know comes up. Stuart?
No, I'm leaving
Robert,
this to the
you're leaving that one out,
politicians.
okay.
I'm stepping down.
Maybe the wisest of all, who knows. Paul?
I think British people are very tolerant on people's religious views. This country has always respected everybody's right to practice their religion. I think we've come a long way in our free speech, letting people express themselves exactly how they are. I just think we've just got to watch what we're putting into our children's head in our schools. There is only male and female, and there are variations that we always tolerate, but we just need to be careful where we're going. This is where the work comes in, and this is where we need to just keep an eye on things. Make sure we don't stray too far from what we really believe in. Honesty, integrity and free speech.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think I've let everyone have a say on that one. Has anybody got any comments? Yeah, there's a person about the hand up, yeah?
I have a conversation about free speech. Conservative Party have been limiting our right to protest in this country.
Yeah.
What are candidates' opinions on
There is a bit of that.
shrinking our ability to protest?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting question, because there's two sides to that. There's the sort of, I find that I'm talking pretty too much here, but you often find there's folks on the left talking about the right to protest in one sense, but on the other side you've got the sort of buffer zones around abortion clinics, which other people think is an infringement on their rights. It's always a balance, isn't it? But has anybody got a quick take on, freedom of speech, right to protest, how essential a thing that is, or even just right to stand and pray, whatever it is, as a country that would call itself a free country? Has anybody got any quick thoughts on that one?
I was just going to say we plan to provoke the Conservatives' laws on protests, because they were making it so you couldn't be too loud and stuff like that, to basically try and stop people like Steve Bray campaigning outside of Parliament. So it was always targeted at one person. So the fact is, it was always a law that went too far, and we would certainly plan to revoke it.
Okay. You've got Miss Steve Bray, can you? Anybody, any thoughts on that one? Jim, did you? No? Okay, I had some mumblings over there. I thought there was no, go for it.
So just building on what Paul said about education of young children, what are your guys' opinions on that, and how should they be educated?
Okay, that's a huge question. Thank you. And it probably may come up later on, I'm not sure. But I think the point is about what we teach our children on issues like gender, fluidity, sexuality, and what's the place of a school versus the place of the home, the church, etc., and the discussions therein. Yeah, go on.
My question mainly, Paul, you talked about increasing freedom of speech and being able to say things, but also limiting what we're teaching children. And education goes past just school. It primarily starts off in home, before school, after school, all around from parents.
Come on, Paul.
Yes, it would be, but I just think that we've gone into a bad direction in our schools. Children should be allowed to learn in our schools and grow up, and as they get to adults, make their own free choices. Teachers mustn't be telling our children what sex they are. Things like this are not for our schools.
Those topics aren't being brought up in education.
A revision of education.
Topical things, especially in primary school. Secondary school, you talk more about it in something like PSHE, and you learn about gender, but that's to make your own educated choice of. Surely teachers should be able to teach the complete range of society, not have to limit it to specific things.
Is it perhaps a question of almost not what you teach, but how you teach it? Maybe, I don't know.
It's more just to say you can only say certain things, but also what things teach.
I've got relatives who...
Okay. Let me bring Stuart in there.
Yeah,
if I can.
I've got relatives that are primary school teachers, and everything is age appropriate. Everything is done in a very constructive way. For instance, you learn about relationships when you're very, very young, and then it develops and grows. It's a bit of a moral panic and scaremongering that's going on at the moment about this. I think it's just completely been blown out of proportion.
Rightly so, because I think
You're saying there should be a moral panic?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments on that one? Is that your arm, Philip?
It is, but I have different questions.
Oh, okay, in that case. And the lady with the red top, yeah.
My question is, because we've started talking about deeply held beliefs, Jim raised the possibility of free votes on certain issues. So my question is to all the candidates whose parties use the whip system. Where would you stand if you had an issue where your own conscience or your communication with your constituents was asking you to vote in one way and your party was giving you a three-line whip to vote in a different way?
Okay, so conscience versus the whip. Quick answer, if we can.
We wouldn't
Well,
use a whip.
Don't have a whip.
Yeah, just,
I'll just go around in order, right, Emmy?
yeah, we wouldn't use the whip. We would be individual voters, if you like, on anything.
It's such a strange
So
phrase, isn't it? If you're not in
Yes.
politics, about using the whip.
Yes.
But, and a three-line whip at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's mainly the Conservatives and the Labour and Lib Dems who would be with you.
Okay. Paul?
I think if you could find someone in one of the other parties to match up your views and then agree both sit back and don't vote. And even if you were told by your party to vote, your conscience should tell you to do the right thing.
I'm not going to preach against conscience, obviously. Go on, Stuart.
I would always vote with my conscience, and I find it bizarre that anyone wouldn't, really.
Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you obviously have to have those conversations behind the scenes as well with the other MPs as well about what that issue is. But obviously when it comes to matters of conscience, that then lies with you as an individual.
Well,
You haven't got
I
parts of it, so
wouldn't be subject to any party whip, and I think even if I was, I would probably always go with what I personally believed to be right. And you see this, but even on acts of conscience, Jim, you know, there are numbers of people in your own party. Look at the way your own party treats the likes of Rosie Duffield. It's appalling the abuse she has to take because she happens to believe in male and female. She happens to believe in preserving women's spaces and those sort of things. So despite your assurances, I'm not reassured by them.
Well, that's your privilege, Ian. But it's been really clear in the manifesto, for instance, that there will be protection of women's spaces, for example. But in terms of for or against whips, we wouldn't get anything done in reality if we didn't have whips. And you have negotiations, even within a party, about what eventually might appear. And then people can vote with their conscience, for sure. And rather famously, there's quite a few Labour people that had a record of voting against the party lines. The Tories, of course, are famous in other directions. Yeah, indeed.
Okay.
But quite a few others.
Stuart, just a little bit quick.
Conscience.
You're going to do that. Your conscience.
right,
Yeah,
right.
okay. Coming on to the next question. With the very quick talk for one person. Just want to. Yeah.
Why do politicians think they can vote for their
I remember doing an essay on that at university. It's a very good question. Edmund Burke. Are they delegates or representatives? Yes, we've all done that one. And do you know what I will say to that is, in my humble opinion, because I need to move on, is democracy doesn't stop on election day. Democracy is what we do every day, so you can always talk to MPs and make your points.
Why aren't these politicians consulting their constituents
Oh, well.
and making sure they represent the views of their constituents rather than saying they get a get out of jail free and then vote for their conscience? If you happen to not believe in abortion and you say it's my conscience, how does that represent your constituents if they do?
Well, I think you've...
Majority.
Well, okay. Okay, I think in terms of polling on abortion, it depends what question you ask, and what term limits and what circumstances. That's a slightly different point. But the point would be is I think that's why we have... Sure. I think that's what tonight's about. And when you can write, in the next few days, I suspect they'll answer questions really well. Being cynical there. But ask those questions. And if someone has a point of conscience that you find objectionable, you might not vote for them. I think that's about the only way. Sorry, I'm doing your jobs and you're not voting for me. I'm sorry. Just turn to the next question. It's 9:15. I did say we'd be in the pub for 10:15. And one wants to keep one's word on these things. Right, can we go to one that pertains to a local issue? Number 1, please.
With growing population and the need for affordable homes and good jobs, how would you ensure that this area is developed to create these things, but in a responsible way, that we won't overload our infrastructure and ruin our local environment?
Thank you. So with the growing population and the need for affordable homes and good jobs, how do you ensure that this area is developed to create those things, but in a responsible way, that won't overload our infrastructure and ruin our local environment? And you get the sort of gist on that one. Let me start with Stuart at the end.
Basically, you've got to put more infrastructure in the first place, just before you start building these homes. It always seems to be done the opposite way round, really. So don't really think about the... I've built quite a few houses, and I've chucked... I think when we connect to the sewerage, it costs us £3,000 just for the infrastructure, which we don't get. The system's broken, really. It does want reforming, so that's my bit on it.
Thank you very much. If you like your politicians brief,
yeah, I've got to keep it brief.
Who hasn't been first yet? Sarah, you haven't been second. You can go next.
I can go next. Well, no, it's a very important point, and I would just firstly stress that the local plan currently for this area is going under consultation for the period up to 2041. And whilst the initial consultation shut on the 2nd of June, there is an opportunity still in later sessions to feed in, and that will be very important that you do try and give your views about what you want for this area going forward. And to your point, I think it is about planning, and it's about looking at the holistic view about what we want in this area. There is obviously new schemes that are coming through all the time at the moment, but we've got to make sure that it's balanced. So to your point, yes, we do need to have the infrastructure in place. We need to make sure that when the plans are going through, we do have the correct access to GP services, to the schools, that our infrastructure works, even that our broadband is going to have the capacity to hit because we're working from home. So it does require a step back. I think sometimes in some of the plans that have gone forward, they look at individual schemes rather than looking at the overall picture. So it is having that holistic view, and hopefully as commercial property lawyer as well, I'll add a bit of weight to that when we're looking forward in how we go in this area.
Because as you know, there are some contentious development issues
It's a very contentious
in this
development.
particular area.
Absolutely,
Yes.
indeed.
Okay, thank you. Stuart, go on.
Okay. The problem is at the moment is the system is too developer-led, and it doesn't take enough into consideration about residents. And obviously we need more homes, that is true, but we need them in the right places, and we need a lot more affordable homes, and we need to make it so the amenities go with development. It was an old Labour idea to get the developers to build the amenities along with the new housing developments. The problem is that they ended up either saying they ran out of money or paying lawyers to basically get them out of having to fulfil their responsibilities. And it's that sort of system that we need to avoid continuing. And we need to make sure that it's baked into any plan or any housing project, the infrastructure, the amenities are there with it. And again, there's always consultation and nothing is top down and imposed on people. Certainly, as we know, with the recent developments nearby, those are definitely have been imposed on people and definitely not what people want, and certainly nothing that will serve the community at all, but end up
Just in very quickly, because I know the gentleman asking the question is very keen about, being a young chap wants a house.
Yeah.
And if you want to feel poor, go and look in the estate agent's window.
Yeah. But the problem is they build a lot of very expensive executive homes, and that actually ends up raising the prices sometimes. They don't build the numbers of actually affordable homes that are actually needed in the area for people to have, and certainly not enough social housing.
Okay, thank you very much. Ian, next, please.
Well, we could be here all night on this one. From my view, we need to have a complete reform of the planning system from top to bottom. It's not working. I keep saying I work for you, not them. If you want to find a system that works for them and not you, it's the planning system. And everybody that lives in and around Deanshanger knows there's not a blade of grass that adjoins this village that hasn't got an option on it. Yeah. There isn't somebody pushing to put 170, 190, 1300, pick your number, right round the whole of the village. As you go round, just get out the various papers and you'll see all the various ones coming forward. And I've worked to try to bat back as many of them as we can, but we do need to do that. In order to make things cheaper, there's going to have to be some sort of way to get public money in for infrastructure. In my view, it's simple, just as in English, it's I before E, except after C. I is infrastructure before expansion. The problem is the C is the cash, and it never comes forward. There's all sorts of tricks that are within the planning system that are being used. Only that last week I was sent a letter to the Persimmon Homes because they owe Spawn School some money for the 1,000 house. The 106 agreement, the legal agreement says it's £1 million index linked. The index stops in 2019 because the development industry is not feeding the data to the people that look after the index. And in my view, that's wrong. So from 2019, when we've had double-digit inflation, it's not in the numbers. And I reckon, by a fag packet calculation, that's costing 300 or 400 grand.
Thank you, Ian. And now, sorry about that. Brain like I said, thank you, Ian, for that. I'm going to go to Jim next, if I may.
Can I just thank Ian for the way he's spoke about these things in the past couple of hustings? Because obviously, we all agree, don't we? We all agree that everything that's happening just now isn't working. I happened to look before we came out. There's a development near here. It says from £475,000. So I don't know about the young person who said, "Can you afford that?" Yeah. No, maybe not. So what do we do? The obvious thing is indeed to reform planning, and that is what Labour has promised to do. Now, the next thing people will worry about, of course, is does that mean they're going to concrete over everything that's green? The answer is no. The principal thing is to go for brown sites. When things are put in, exactly as Ian said, we will aim through planning to direct folks, the developers, to put in the infrastructure. Obviously, they have to make a profit, so there has to be some sort of balance. But if the reforms go, personally, I don't know what the reforms are, but there will be people who are expert that will come up with that. Then, once you've done that, you look at what's your motivation. The motivation for Labour is to have an expansion of social housing. Social housing, by the way, is more likely not to be in suburbia or in villages, because we'll have it in places that is most needed. It might not even be £475,000 houses. There'll be a balance that we don't have at the minute, because it's entirely left to the market. For young people, there is a promise to buy, to have freedom to buy mortgages, guarantee system available.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm northern, so I can't believe your house prices down here. It's insane. Retire and move north is my advice. But even then, it's expensive. I don't think I'm being impartial to say that houses are expensive. Right, where are we next? Let's go Paul and then Emmy. So Paul first.
Well, it's quite simple. Houses, we haven't got enough. We need to build one every 2 minutes to keep up with the demand. The demand has been caused by 10 million people coming into this country since 2010. That's 4 cities the size of Birmingham. We just can't do it. We need to get a grip of everything, get our councils to build our infrastructure, schools, clinics, new roads. We shouldn't be depending on our builders to put things in as little add-ons as the contract. We need to get it from the top down so that we get everything right, and then we can expand.
Thank you very much. Emmy?
Yeah, by the way, the research shows that it's only 0.3% of the population that migration adds to. It's, but anyway, the Green Party have a right homes, right place, right price charter. We're taking this really seriously. We're also the party that would invest most in the infrastructure generally. So, you know, it's creaking so that every new development. And then there's something really wrong with the property developing market. Help to Buy has inflated it. It's gross and there's too much power. We won't get into those big conversations, but there needs to be a lot of correction. Also, there's 1 million empty homes in this, and there's a lot of land, and I think we need to really be looking at what there is already available. And the Greens, of course, would never be building on any sort of green belt, and we would be protecting our environment more, spreading out these developments into smaller developments. We would make sure they're really connected to the communities, not these disconnected great big places where people have to depend on cars as well. So various things there, but we do, if you like, have a charter that would take on the whole issue of housing. I've only done housing developments, but there's a whole other issue around the warehouse developments, of course.
There is indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments on that. Any comments from the floor on that one? Yeah, gentleman there.
Thank you. It's a direct question to Sarah from something you said in your introduction and thinking about your background as a corporate lawyer and development. If you were elected as an MP, are you going to be a full-time MP or are you going to carry on doing corporate lawyer work part-time?
No, I 100% would be a full-time MP because I think this is a full-time role which is very, very serious. Why I mention it is because I think I bring the legal skills in the background, having a familiarity with the way that these sort of developments are formed and come together. I can use my legal skills to help, to empower the residents, and I can also hit the ground running straight away because some of the developments coming have very short time states before we have to go to planning meetings, and I think you need that voice to be able to speak for the people. So no, rest assured, I can use my experience to the best advantage for our residents. Throughout my entire, yes, absolutely.
But the trouble is the Conservatives have presided over this system that has led to way too much power in the property development market. And a Help to Buy, they've just carried on and on with it, even though it's been shown to be really, really problematic in terms of what it's doing to the market, and wealth is getting accumulated too much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any? Go on, go
Okay.
quick. Yes, I've seen it.
It's really good that Sarah is offering those skills. Of course, she's in the Conservative Party. Andrea Leadsom has been really trying to follow all these things for some years.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't know, Sarah, or maybe there's something else that stops them actually following through in their promises.
Okay. Let's give you a look. John, is it a point on this, or is it the... Yeah, go on then. So social housing, sort of social rental housing. Yeah, I mean, if you have a policy on saying X amount of houses have got to be rentable at a reasonable rate, or via the local council, or...
I mean, ours is 380,000 houses, about 150,000 of those are social housing.
Okay.
And I've certainly been saying to South Northampton, West Northampton, when you're negotiating these legal agreements with developers, stop saying for every 10 houses you build, we want 3, 4, whatever the number is, given for free, because that only comes out in one place, which is the price. Ask for land, and what I actually think we should be trying to do is to get something where you can build a box on a piece of ground. The box, the bricks and plastic and wood and whatever that makes up the house, is about £150,000, which is what on a small on a normal income, if you divide that by 3, it's about £50,000 of household income. 2 people on a job of 25, one earning 50 and partner staying at home. However you wish to split that kind of money. You can have ordinary people living in ordinary houses on ordinary wages, and I absolutely and passionately believe with that. You just cannot get through the broken planning system. It needs total reform.
Thank you, Ian. I'll have to be careful. We'll try and be fair with time as we can. John at the back, yeah? Okay, I'll be careful just to try and be fair to all the candidates, and I know it's everyone want to bring their own perspective, but the need for appropriate housing and affordable housing for disabled people as well as social housing is a point to raise. Can I, so we're very short of time.
James, you did ask about renters, and just to say that despite many promises, the no eviction, no fault eviction still exists for the Conservatives, and there's a promise
I'll have a quick reply on that, because you said a couple of things going your way. You're not the incumbent.
Rent controls, I think.
Well, also we need leasehold reform as well.
Okay, let me just give Sarah a right to reply on some of those things.
No, you're absolutely right, because we have to get the balance for everyone. If it's not ability to buy immediately, then you have to have security with your tenancies too. We need to readdress the balance, and that is something the Conservative Party are committing to in their manifesto going forward.
Right. I'd also like to say is we also need to look at leasehold reform as well. We're going to cap ground rents, and we're going to end residential leaseholds.
You're all worse than Vickers for talking. Thank you, and we're awful. Thank you ever so much, and I know you're very passionate, and I love it. A very quick question. I'm going to give you 30 seconds each on this one to answer, but you may already have a view, and I suspect some of you do. Number 7, quickly, if you could. Thank you. So, governments in Britain, apart from I think one in 1950 or 51, as I recall, not that old, but without ever getting majority of votes, if the polls are right, big if, obviously, Labour could win 40% of the vote, get 80% of the seats. Reform could get 20% of the votes, and few or even no seats. And people feel pressured to vote tactically or not for the party of their first choice, or do for independence. Is it about time we looked again at electoral system? I'm just going to go along the table, 30 seconds each, because I think you've thought this one already. Emmy, yes?
Yes. We are pro-proportional representation. It's undemocratic how it is. Coalitions, which usually come out of proportional representation, are much more collaborative. End this divisive first-past-the-post system that's undemocratic, you know, and work together and less divisive.
Thank you very much, Emmy. Paul?
Exactly the same as what Emmy says. Proportional representation needs to come in quickly. How many votes get thrown away every election? It's just not good enough. We need to reform our voting system. Yes, proportional representation.
Stuart?
First past the post is a dinosaur of a system. It's, I think, only used in that great democratic bastion of Belarus in Europe. So how anyone can think that the number of votes you get should equal the number of seats, and how anyone can think not, I find very strange. And no one should complain about things like vote splitting because that's what's forced upon us with tactical voting in this election. So, you know, you should accept the result. You live by first past the post, you die by first past the post. Yes, absolutely should be.
Because the people who suffer from the system are always against the people who win governments and majorities.
Exactly.
When they just get in, well, let's see what Labour, if they get in, you know, when you get in, is it different? But there are pros to the system we have. But Sarah, your thoughts?
Yes, no, I mean, yes, we have over the years, we have looked at alternative systems as well. There was a vote on AV a few years ago, which was then went so. No, but I'm saying we are looking at those. The thing with the proportional representation is, yes, you do get the balance, which I think is important. However, you do also need to have a decision-making and a strength in government, because on important issues, the ideal, yes, is that everyone works together, but there will inevitably be times when they won't work together. And you need a system where you can actually have decisive action that needs to be taken. So I think that is something in defence of our system.
Do you mean like the 80-seat majority and the 5 Prime Ministers we've had over the last few years?
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, crikey, who knows what the Thursday night might throw up. But, it creates majorities in stable government. That's the argument, isn't it? But Ian?
Well, I think if you get the result that our questioner has said, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure to change the system. And it is a bit strange because the Conservatives benefit from it, say, down here, but they would actually benefit from a PR system in places like Doncaster or Barnsley or Liverpool or somewhere like that, where there are pockets of Conservative support. Likewise, Labour suffer down here because there's many more Conservatives. So the two big parties are too wedded to their own interests in that. My concern is, one, what system would you use, and two, then this problem of democracy, because as was said, there was an 80-seat majority for the Conservatives, and that's going to get wiped out. There's a possibility they can go from a majority of 80 seats to just 80 seats, but at least there is a firm decision being taken, and you will be able then to say to that new government, what are you going to do? If you end up always with a coalition, they've always got the excuse of, well, we would have loved to have done it if only we didn't have to compromise with that other lot that we had to get in order to get enough to get something through. So there's a conversation to be had about how we do that, and how you don't then end up just having some sort of permanent government of the least worst option, everything that you kind of
Okay, I'm just trying to take a bit quick, so thank you for that. Jim?
So instead of having the least worst option, we've got the most worst option for the past 14 years.
Well, first I was in a coalition, of course. Carry on.
Indeed, and that shows how that might not work as well. Labour, of course, are in favour of the system as it stands. Not everybody is always in favour when they're in power. The SNP in Scotland are in favour of proportional representation, even when they were doing really well. And it's maybe just of interest, I'll just share this with you. The Labour conference voted for proportional representation. It's not policy, but there is a strong element within Labour that might one day yield to such an event.
Fair enough. Stuart?
Yeah, I think technology is moving on that fast that we could have a live vote, so we can move our vote. If we started moving our vote around, they would definitely do what we want them to do. They secure a seat for 5 years, and whatever they do, they can change their mind. Where was this Rebuild Britain? I never seen none of that. You know, if you could move your vote because they weren't doing what they said, I think it would make them keep their eye on the ball, really.
It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because lots of democracy can be a good thing, but it can also be quite a divisive thing.
Yeah. Well, I think if you keep the one party past the post, you can get things done. But once they start telling lies, you can say, well, actually, I'm going to go for the
You're
other.
not allowed to lie in church.
Yeah.
Well, I shall hold them to it, don't you? The questions from the floor on that one then? On PR, yeah? Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm not going to give everyone a go at that one because that would be a little bit unfair probably in some ways. But I will give you a very quick chance to plug. I want to get one last question before we go. So if you'd just like to respond directly to that.
Yeah, of course. No, in terms of presence, I think I'm sorry if you hadn't had a visit from Andrea. I mean, very much my father was county councillor for 20 years, and I saw him always very active in the community. So that's what I want to do. I want to be a very visible MP, and I want to be very involved in the community. So I would make it then. I'm sorry you haven't had that visit, and I'll make that. In terms of the last 14 years, I would just clarify in terms of you do have to see this as 3 stages. So you did have the fallout from the financial crash where we had notes saying there was no money left. So we had to recover from that. You had the Brexit years, which was a huge constitutional crisis. And then obviously you've had the COVID years, the cost of living crisis, then for the energy crisis. So there are many reasons. You have to see the background on what we have done and what we have tried to achieve
Thank you,
from there.
Sam. I'm going to have to cut you short because everyone, all the rest will want to answer that. I'm not going to let them. I'm going to be very unpopular. But go to this lady with the stripy top on. Thank you. That's a lovely question. Before they answer that, 'cause I'm going to get them all to answer the last question, which I think that ties into nicely, if I may. So please bear in mind that lady's question when we come to question 9. And I'm going to get Anne to ask that.
Churchill said that democracy was the worst system apart from all the others. What do you value most about democracy?
Thank you. So Churchill famously said, I don't know the exact quote, but democracy is the worst system apart from all the others. What do you value most about democracy? And probably, just to finish off for tonight, reflecting the lady's question about the dangers and the downsides as well. I'm just going to give you, because we haven't got a long time, just 30 seconds, and I'll start from the cinema, work that way. What do you value? What matters? Why should we celebrate democracy? 30 seconds.
Well, I'm not sure if there is democracy. But, yeah, we should do. But it's very hard to know what it is. I find it, I watch what goes on in Parliament, and sometimes I think, well, that's not my view, and I don't think it's most of the public's view as well. But the leaders seem to get something in their head or told something, and they go in a direction that you just don't feel to be right. And it baffles me why they do it, and it makes me feel uneasy. And not knowing how parties work and stuff like that, but I just got this uneasy feeling that we're being led in certain directions that we don't really want to go, but somebody else is leading us. So it's an hard one to say, really.
Democracy is, as we say, it's not just something that happens on Thursday. It's a thing that we do, a thing that we live in all the time. What's good about it? Maybe how can we help to make it better for you?
From my point of view, I think, we should have a simple website that everybody can put their argument. I send one flyer out, and that's as far as I can go, really.
Thank you. Okay, Jim, sorry.
So, in a way, the easy answer is to say democracy allows us to stand up for people that we disagree with. And that is fundamental. I'm not sure, is this the Cromwellian place, or was it the Cavaliers that won out?
I've only been here 6 years.
So Cromwell believed in the right of people to be different to him, and because of him, people like me that are Baptists exist.
I was watching the Oliver Cromwell film last night with Richard Harris. Yeah, and then I said to Mike, look, it's Dumbledore, and he was really impressed.
And he was good for Parliament.
But not so good for the monarchy. Ian.
No, Cromwell was good for Parliament. Maybe a few people from my home country might disagree with you on that one, but we'll leave that one hanging in the air. So what's good about democracy was your question, and what you want from us was yours. So for my mind, what's good about democracy is the opportunity to be free, to make your voice known, and on Thursday, most likely you can sweep away what you've seen or what you believe to be a failing government and put in a new one, and no doubt in the fullness of time, Jim, that'll get swept away too whenever people are fed up with it and think, well, it's time to change. So I firmly believe in freedom, in liberty, in democracy, in your opportunity to have these sort of debates and disagree agreeably and openly if we wish to. And what do you want from us, madam? All I would ask for is tolerance. We don't always have to agree, but we should at least be able to give each other the space and tolerate each other's opinions.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yes, so very much. I think the beauty of democracy as well is for everyone to have their views and opinions and be able to vote on that and speak. And I've thoroughly loved being able to speak to so many residents across this constituency over the last few weeks since being selected, because that is how I really understand what matters to you and how I can make that difference. And I think that is a beautiful part of our system. But to your point, yes, as I said, disagree agreeably. We don't, media has made it very, very black and white at the moment, and actually we all need that respect and tolerance. So I think that's the best way we can help, is that. Thank you.
Thank you. Stuart?
As a historian, I'd love to talk about Oliver Cromwell, but I'm actually going to say that if anything is an example of what's amazing about democracy and what you should value is this, where we are and what we're doing now. I mean, this really is it in action. Residents coming, putting their views across to candidates, potential MPs, and everyone having very different opinions, but not, as I say, and disagreeing politely and not, expressing their views in a strong way and not trying to undermine anyone. And again, that comes to the idea about how you protect yourself and all those sorts of things. It's all about, as you said, tolerance, and making sure that everyone knows what you believe in, but not allowing that to, not allowing that to ruin your ability.
It's unfortunate when there's a lot of agreement. So we're trying to get to Emmy, we were like, yeah, what they said, I suppose. But who knows? Paul, next, and then Emmy.
Well, I just about agree with everyone here about democracy. This is what it's all about. You people being here today and able to hear what we have to say, and that we take your ideas forward and do the best we can for you. As regards safety, I think being a politician now is like putting a target on your back a little bit. It's not a safe thing to do, but it's worthwhile to do if we get the results we want for everyone in the constituency. That's what it's about.
Thank you. Emmy.
Last one. Yeah, I wrote 3 words: truth, trust and threat. But anyway, I can't go into all of it. I think I've been very worried about democracy, and that makes me realise how much I love it. If we look over at the States, and obviously they've got another election coming, but if you think of what happened last time, that is a threat to democracy. And then we really realise what we value, because let's face it, if the government, the Tories lose this election, they're not going to say it was rigged. Because we don't have that, but we might get leaders in that are more like Trump and that do start to say it was rigged when it wasn't rigged. Well, however well we run these kinds of things, there are higher levels that are really threatening democracy. I really worry about it.
For purposes of impartiality, it's worth pointing out that the Democrats said it was rigged when Trump won as well. It was a Russian hoax, if you remember. So I think the general point, that when Trump won, the Democrats said that was rigged by the Russians, if you remember. So that I think there is a culture in American politics which, not all of it is what we'd want.
And when we had the Brexit vote, there was many people saying that was rigged and that was the Russians and that was this lot and that was that lot. So you have to also accept the result, whether it's the one you like or not, and not seek to overturn it.
I'm going to finish on that, folks. I'm to quote Cromwell, actually, Oliver. And that, the only one thing worse than an immovable king is an immovable parliament. He got rid of it by sending in the new model army to chuck them out. But the point is, we don't have to do that. And I think it is a wonderful thing that if Rishi Sunak isn't Prime Minister on Friday morning, he'll give the keys, we'll go to the king, I'll give him the keys, and most likely Mr. Starmer will, Sir, I should say, Sir Keir, will pop over, or we'll ask him to form a government, and he'll think about it, and he may well say yes. This is what usually happens, and that's it. And you don't have to go and wave a flag and say, is it brilliant? You might be absolutely gutted, but that's the result. And we're at peace, and we're still one community, and we're still one country, and I think that just speaking peace at a time of upheaval, if I could finish on that, I think it's good to disagree on stuff, and if you want to know what I think, come to the Beehive and buy us a pint, and I'll tell you all. I disagree with myself half the time, so it's good fun.
Come here on Sunday.
Come here on Sunday. Well, if you agree with me, come on Sunday. No, you are very welcome, of course, here on a Sunday morning. We're open from 10:30 and we start at 11. You're all very, 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 very welcome. And indeed at Passenham down the road, which was involved in the Civil War. But let's not have any more civil wars. And I'm going to do some very controversial. I'm going to close in a prayer. And you can join in if you like, but I'm just to be quiet, and I'm just going to thank God for the evening. So Lord, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the imperfect gift of democracy that we have. We pray, Lord, that you'll bless each of us who've come tonight. Thank you for those standing for election. Keep them safe, Lord. And we pray that you will help us, you'll bless us and keep us safe as we go our own ways this evening. Amen. So on that bombshell, I hope you can join us in the Beehive, because I think that's also part of democracy. Mine's a pint. And absolutely. Oh, thank you. My pleasure.